Hey there, Austin. Hello, Nancy. Now I'm going to see if I can share my screen here. Looks like I might be able to. All right, let me get this set up here.
Hello.
Hi there. Oh, got a haircut.
Yeah, much needed.
All right, let's see here.
Good evening.
Hello.
Hi. Tony,
Hi, Lynn. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. Very glad to have you here. Paul, how are you doing?
Good, Lynn. How are you?
Good,
I'm just
thanks.
trying to find. You didn't send me an updated grid, did you?
No.
Okay, so I'll try to find the old one.
Yep, the one that I sent last week. Yeah.
The one that's dated the 2022, 20208. What the hell is that? I don't know. Somewhere. Where is it? Come on. Gotta be here somewhere. Was the one you sent? Yeah, I had that. Where did
It would have been the 28th.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah. Time goes so fast.
Right. Well, these are the applications, but you did send me the one, but I don't have it. But you sent it to me by email, correct?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I should be able to find it. It's kind of annoying that it's not where I think it is. Just make sure that it's CPC grant summary. That's what it is, but it's not the right date. Date modified on. All right, let me open this up and see if it's the right one or not.
It would be very little change. There was only one change on it, and that was the town hall grant application.
This is so annoying. Oh dear, 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 dear.
And I'm sorry, I've only got one screen right now, so I can't.
No, that's fine. That's fine. It'll take me a minute. Just bear with me. Sorry about this.
In the meantime, we'll let folks gather. It looks like we have Austin, Nancy Catamo.
Okay, grant summary, the 28th. All right, there it is. And then I will download it.
Okay.
Yeah, come on. I downloaded it. Now what? Download it. Yeah. Oh, okay. It already opened up here. All right. Then I'll move it up here. And then I will open it all the way up. We should probably open up the grant proposals also.
Mhm.
And they are, that was also the 28th, open with WPS office. Okay, and we're up.
In the meantime, Paul, I'm going to actually see if I could chase up some more of our committee members to attend this meeting.
Okay, that's.
Oh, well, there's Ellen. Good, 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 good. Hi, Ellen.
All right, let me share my screen. Let's see, screen 2. That's what I want. Share. Okay.
Okay,
So
that's great.
there's
So,
the, yeah, go ahead.
okay, so actually, I will call this meeting of the Nahant's Community Preservation Committee meeting to order. I'm Lynn Spencer, chairman of this committee. And with us tonight are Paul Spurn, our clerk, Nancy Catalmo, Austin Antrim, Ellen Goldberg, and who else? I don't see any other committee members, but we certainly welcome the committee as well as the public to this meeting. This meeting is being held by Zoom. For participation from the public, I would ask you to put your comments in the chat. And as at appropriate times in the meeting, I will look into the chat to bring up comments as it pertains to the items we're discussing. Right. So with that, let me ask you, Paul, do we have minutes from the previous meeting?
No, the minutes have not been forthcoming, so sorry about that.
Okay, well, will you just try to chase that down with Kristen so we can
Yeah,
be up to date on
we had
it?
we had a brief conversation by email today. I will follow it up.
Okay. All right. Well, we were in the midst of committee review with looking at the folks who were assigned to look at particular grants. And we had quite an extensive meeting last week and left off just at the moment where Nancy Catalmo was going to come on to talk about what she had been looking into on behalf of two subjects. One was the playground proposal and the other one was the flagpole. So Nancy?
So I actually think I had covered the material on the flagpole.
Oh, yeah. Now that I look at my notes, I hear you.
I
yeah.
got through that, and then all the people in the town wanted to get to that, Little Nahant Road thing. So
Yeah.
that was quite brief. But I mean, just, looking, if you go down to town hall and look at the flagpole, it is, down to the wood, in a number of places. So definitely, needs work to it. It's the lowest in priority that the town submitted to something, but in their projects, but it definitely needs to get taken care of. And I don't know how significant it is as more and more wood gets exposed. So that's kind of that topic. So we could go to the playgrounds. Just to remind us, the submission by the town asked for 100,000, and our committee discussed that on the first round and suggested that we have some further delineation of what that would be for. And then we got a submission which was sent to each member of the committee, and I'm not sure that's something you can bring up now because it was, I think, in the form of an email from Tony.
I'll go look for it.
There were 6 areas that were highlighted, and Tony and Zach had done a review using a checklist of all of these and submitted that to us with a breakdown of, what in each area should be taken care of. The total came to $137,850, and the comments were that obviously we need community involvement to gather some of these funds. And Tony had a meeting of people, I couldn't make it, of Little Nahant, in which the community seemed very involved and wanting to be, engaged in this process. So that was a good start. I guess I'd like to hear a little bit more, I think, from Tony about this list once maybe we can find it. But I just wanted to make two comments. One is, by our survey from Open Space, everybody knows that we've got youth issues to deal with, and the various ages of youth, and we also have the elderly population. And I just wanted to throw out the idea that the World Health Organization, as well as Massachusetts, have this age-friendly designation. And so it's something that each town needs to strive for. And we know that from our survey, but we also want to make sure that we think about each of these areas in terms of the various age limits and disability functions, for what these playgrounds are for. In 2004, the Swing With Me people said Pleasant Street was a tot lot and Flash Road was for 6 to 12 years old and Short Beach was for all ages. And that may not be what we want to say now, but I think we need to address each area according to the ages. And then the one other comment I wanted to make before I'd like to hear more from town is that we heard a comment from one of our board members that the playgrounds of Nahant were just bad, or not adequate, and that he and other people often go to Swampscott, especially the Phillips Park one that was in 2017 was completed as part of the whole football field sort of deal. And when I looked over the Jackson Park and the Phillips Park things, there were significant citizens group involvement in all of those, as well as industry, businesses, which is not something that we have in Nahant to contribute big bucks to. But I just want to throw in the point that in both of these playgrounds, there was significant outside involvement of also developing those playgrounds. And I just want to be sure that we're not just doing maintenance on our playgrounds, but looking more towards the future and to what new might be available that would be helpful for our town to compete with, say, Swampscott, for people wanting to come to our playgrounds. So I appreciate that we got a reassessment according to each playground. And I guess I would like to ask if Tony could elaborate a little more on that.
Tony, I'm happy to post the files from this Dropbox, a link that you sent, if you'll tell me which one you want me to show.
So each folder there are pictures, and then the playground inventory 2022. I would click on that. That's probably going to be the best place to start.
Yeah, I think so too.
Essentially, we went to every park, listed out, all the components that are associated with those particular playgrounds, number of units, what their condition was, if a recommendation, and then tried to come up with a preliminary cost estimate. Of course, you know, there's a lot of stuff. We basically said, we're going out there, let's try to inventory everything. The some of this stuff, you know, is outside of what this playground CPC application would go towards. But we figured we might as well just inventory everything associated with the park. But you can see there's everything from picnic tables to actually playground equipment, signage, lighting, a number of different things. We do have, I asked Mark Gallagher, who's from New England Recreation Group, who was on the call with the Little Nahant neighborhood the other night, and I'll explain a little bit more about that. But I had him take a look at this list and look at the pictures. He said that pretty much, and kind of in line with what you said, Nancy, pretty much all of our playgrounds are target, you know, the equipment there targets ages 5 to 12. But he did say that the Pleasant Street play structure had a lot more, had other equipment that was more targeted towards like 2 to 5. So there is a younger targeting set of equipment there at Pleasant Street. So that kind of makes sense with what you were saying, Nancy, that they originally had pictured Pleasant Street as more of a tot location.
Right. And the other thing is, just at the Johnson School, there's 2 playgrounds that you inventoried besides the basketball court area, and one is more for the small children, the one that's all in the fence, and the other one on the DPW side is you know, for older age kids. So I think we've got 2 kind of younger age kids designated playgrounds.
Obviously, you know, the maybe it's not obvious. I would say that our plan, if the CPC were to approve this funding, it would trigger a community engagement process that I think would follow similar to what happened in 2004, and a lot of the kind of response I got from the Little Nahant group the other night is that the town showing a commitment of a certain amount of funds for a playground, the folks abutting that playground that use the playground the most, you know, get involved in that process, and you show them, all right, here's how much money we have. Here are the options that we could purchase to either add a new piece of equipment or replace a piece of equipment that needs to be replaced, or, you know, do different things. And the public sees that, says, well, we want to do more. We want to do more than that. You know, we have this vision, but it's kind of limited from the budget that we bring forward. So what even happened the other night in the Little Nahant meeting was a lot of the residents saying, well, you know, what if we were able to fundraise another 10 grand or another 5 grand or another 15 grand? Then what options would we be looking at? So we're actually in the process of putting that together to give them some feedback. So, you know, I think that if the town shows a commitment and begins this community process, I think you'll see a lot of people get involved, either whether that be help with like installing equipment or fundraising efforts.
Okay.
I would say that you focus the funds towards actual playground equipment first. You know, we're working on different things related to like picnic tables and benches and memorial options in that regard, and, you know, finding other ways to try to just keep up all of our recreational spaces on an annual basis. But the playground equipment itself is where I would want to prioritize, you know, the funds if we were to engage in that process.
Okay. Thank you, Tony.
You're welcome.
Nancy, do you have anything further to say about this one?
Just that accessibility to these areas is something we also have to think about, because a lot of times grandparents or older citizens are bringing the kids to there too, and that the benches and the picnic tables are relevant for the whole spectrum of the age groups I think is important too.
Yeah, that's a great point. Thank you.
And
Thank you.
Very good
Nancy, I looked into MassCore, and they actually offer ADA compatible picnic tables.
Mhm.
So we're going to include that in the memorial bench picnic option. So we have a memorial bench program in town where folks will purchase a bench with a plaque in memory of a loved one that had passed. And one of the issues that we have in town is that we actually have like so many benches installed, especially in like the along the beaches and, you know, looking out to the ocean. But we really need, you know, more benches in parks, around playgrounds, picnic tables, things of that nature. Plus, we're looking into memorial tree options. So Nancy had brought up the, you know, ADA compatible picnic table and bench point to me when we met. So we actually did look into that and are going to include it in that program. So if somebody wanted to, you know, purchase a bench or picnic table for a playground that their, you know, loved one that it's in memory of, you know, spent time there a lot with their grandchildren or something like that, an ADA option is something they can choose from.
Okay, thank you. Other committee members, any comments or questions about what you've heard from Nancy and Tony on this subject?
Lynn, are we in a position to approve a sizable grant for a purchase that's not specified? Which is essentially what Tony is asking us to do.
It's an interesting question.
Because I agree with what Tony said, and it's very much in line with our last meeting's discussion, and that is that the best way to get this done the right way is to have a lot of community participation. You're more likely to meet standards for different age groups. You're more likely to get townspeople to volunteer to help with installation and save some money that way. But how do we meet Tony's very sensible request that we inspire people with the notion that there's a budget behind this, when in fact we don't know what we're buying? How do you bring that to town meeting? Or I guess our first hurdle is, how do you bring it to FinCom and then to town meeting?
Well, I think it starts with this committee, quite honestly. How do we review, you know, what is basically $137,850 request, you know, in terms of what's on that spreadsheet? I mean, to me, what's on the spreadsheet is a good start of a description of this. I think it starts with this committee first reviewing that application, and then it goes to FinCom and town meeting. Have we in the past given grants where we haven't had an exact list of equipment options? Yes, we certainly have. So I think we have, I will remind the committee that at this point we have over $2 million worth of requests. We have approximately in this year You know, we've got about $391,000. So we're going to have to be very strategic about how we look at our funding. The one application that we haven't heard a more in-depth review of is the Nahant Historical Society's application. And I don't believe I've seen Jim Dolan on this call. He was the one that was going to be following up with that. I'm just looking, is Jim here? Oh, Dave Wilson, by the way, I see a member of our
Yep,
community.
Dave's here.
Yep. Not quite sure what to say about this, other than I want to give Jim the opportunity to follow up. And we'll reach out to him to do that. I think it is a pretty clear application in terms of its completeness, as we see it on the screen and the way it's been presented by the Historical Society. So with that, I'd like to, Paul, return to the spreadsheet.
Yeah.
So we can look at what I was just mentioning. If you go to the bottom line on this. Thank you. Can everyone see that?
I could make it bigger if necessary.
Mm-hmm. So in sum, what this is saying is that there's $2,020,350 worth of grant requests.
Okay. Easier said than done. Wait a minute. Sorry
Okay.
about that. No, it doesn't. Sorry, it doesn't expand the way I thought it did.
Okay, well, I think we'll work with it the way it is.
It's an either or. Sorry about that.
Yeah. We've got some matching capability here. And again, we're still working with $200,000 worth of grant request. As we see down below, we have projected funding from fiscal year 23 on our 3% tax surcharge. Assuming a 70% match, we come in at just over $390,000 for this year. In our accumulated, in our general reserve, we've got $266,000. And then in our housing reserve, we've got $35,000. So if we were to spend all of that, we would have that, which is $693,000. We would be without any general reserve, which we have been trying to maintain some amount in that account. So we have some work to do and some tough decisions to make. I just want to remind the committee that in addition to the requests that we've been hearing, we have two bonds that are with us right now. We have the public library $400,000 bond that was taken 2 years ago. This is in the second year. This is year 2 of that bond, and that will be a draw of $60,400. Tony, I have not heard from Allison as to whether the bond that was approved at last year's town meeting for $500,000, I haven't heard if that's been taken yet. I suspect not, since the construction is just about to begin. But do you have any intelligence on that?
I have some bad news about that, unfortunately.
Well, all right, let's have it.
This was as of Friday and completely took over the weekend and all of today, was trying to figure out what our next step was going to be. But the lowest bidder Greenwood. After we, went through the process of like double checking references, making sure they were going to be the right, that we wanted to award to them. We had a meeting with them to begin the contract negotiation process. Hung up the phone, everything sounded great. We were moving forward. We were going to get it on the next agenda, and then they withdrew their bid, and they cited increased pricing of materials and their sub bidders.
The
So
sub-bidders?
their sub bid contracts, I guess, and the material costs. That's what they cited was an increase, which is basically mean they had to withdraw because they wouldn't be able to, adhere to the quote that they submitted in the bid process.
Oh, wait a
So-
minute. Wait a minute. Not that I could tell you what to do about that, but you can award and then negotiate a change order.
Potentially.
Sounds to me like something else was afoot here.
That's the feeling I'm getting to be honest, because it came out of nowhere after like a very productive contract negotiation, like first call on contract negotiation. So, we could go down the legal battle of
Yeah.
like forcing them to stick to their bid, but we were already kind of nervous about them to begin with.
Right.
But we ended up, checking references and devised a plan that was going to, keep a resident engineer on site and, make sure that they were going to meet the deadlines and things of that nature. Long story short, because of the deadline, like the time frame that comes with the Massachusetts Historical Grant
Yeah.
of June, we're trying to figure out, can we go to the next lowest bidder, or do we have to potentially bid this job again? So it's going to require a sign off from the Inspector General's office, obviously.
Right.
So, no, the bond hasn't been pulled yet. And we were hoping construction was going to be starting, next, they were ready to mobilize in the next week or two. And now we kind of got to get our bearings. So, unfortunately, it's important for you guys to be aware of this too, because the CPC application that I submitted for what's it called? The third and fourth part of their bid, the alt 3, alt 4,
Mhm.
plus the cemetery wall, that dollar amount was based off of Greenwood's submitted bid.
Right.
Obviously, if we can go to the next lowest bidder, their numbers are different. I don't recall if they're higher or lower on alt 3 and 4, but obviously their total bid or their base bid was higher. So either way, I got to make an adjustment for that. And then certainly if we have to go back out to bid, I'll have to make an adjustment for that too, if we want to try to accomplish alt 3 and 4 as well. So.
So Tony, I'm just taking a quick look. Your next bidder was
Homer?
Yeah.
Richard Smith, the engineer, was following up on some reference calls for them today in case we're able to go to them instead of having to rebid it out.
Yeah, okay. Well, folks, there we go. That is the story on the library bond. Tony, good luck. I think the Inspector General, from my experience, is going to be, the call you have to make to see if you can go to the second bid. Otherwise, it's going to go back out to bid.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't seem fair, that they submit a low bid in order to win the contract and then withdraw because their materials are going to be more expensive than they thought. That doesn't seem right. So,
I
we're
mean,
working on it,
it
obviously.
is legitimate that the materials costs are, this is a little bit of a side, folks, but it is legitimate. The material costs are all over the place. But, if you had a contractor who wanted to actually stay in the game, it would be a discussion that would say, look, this is happening. We'll enter into the contract and then you can make an adjustment based on a careful analysis of the proposed change and why. And that's just an adjustment to the contract. So,
Yeah, I asked Richard that, and even like, even as I finished asking the question, I said, it sounds like something else is going on here because they should have, if they really wanted this job, they would have offered that conversation out instead of just withdrawing. And so, we're, the next step there is you're kind of arming them in a sense to, stay in the contract, or they're actually not under a contract yet. They were awarded, but we hadn't signed the contract yet. We were just negotiating it. So we could say, well, you were the low bidder, you submit your bid, you have to honor your bid. But it's not a good relationship out of the gate. And yeah, I don't want to go into something like that.
yep. All right. Well, thank you, Tony. So we appreciate the dilemma or the balls that you're juggling to make this work. So good luck with that.
I'll keep you posted.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Well, folks, what I'd like to do is to go back to the top, Doug, excuse me, Paul, and just run this chart briefly.
Sure. Okay.
Okay, so we have the Historical Society. We haven't heard Jim's review of it, but we have a clear application for $41,450. This chart needs to be adjusted. The next one for the Nahant Preservation Trust, they have come in with a request to go to $64,000 with a $15,000 match. I don't know if you can do that, Paul.
I can do it on this.
Yep, that's great.
You said it's 64?
The
With a
total,
15,000?
the notes I have from last meeting, and folks, if somebody else has something to add, please do. The grant request is $64,000. They're matching it with $16,000 for a total project cost of $80,000.
Okay. I don't know why it's doing this weird thing, but see if I can make it work.
Okay.
All right.
The Nahant Village Church is asking for $40,000 matched by 10 for a total project cost of $50,000.
Yeah.
Based on our discussion last week, I think the Johnson School is coming in with a revised. I haven't seen anything formal from them.
I haven't seen it yet either, Lynn.
But the amount I have here from my notes from the meeting was that they were going to ask for a planning grant of $7,000 to $9,000 was mentioned, Paul. I
Yeah, I know, but I think we thought that was kind of low, didn't we?
Well, all right, for the sake of a placeholder, let's put it in at 10.
All right.
And I believe that Kevin was going to check in with Tony to get a more validated cost for the planning on that.
Yeah, and I think he had a meeting with a landscape architect.
Uh-huh, okay, great.
So I think we'll get more information from
That's
them.
great. Good, okay. Um, the town of Nahant, Tony, if you're still with us, is there any latest on the 9 Little Nahant Road situation?
No, we had another, extensive conversation at the Board of Selectmen meeting on Wednesday night. We still don't have a new date as to when the auction's going to occur. But the conversation on Wednesday night actually, I think, was more centralized around, like the back taxes that are owed, and how that process came about and how it might work itself out. So not much like new to really discuss there. We did hear, Dan Scripp had heard from the HUD attorney as to reasoning why the auction was delayed. Had said for settlement authority purposes, HUD needed to run a full appraisal and had to schedule that with the tenants in order to get that done. Last I heard from HUD, things are on course as far as that goes.
Okay,
So I don't know what that means. Not really a great answer, in my opinion, but yeah, so we're still kind of sitting tight.
So the nature of that request you anticipate is going to be under the um, categories of historic preservation and uh, recreation,
Open space and recreation.
open space and recreation.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask actually the committee because, what we would do, let's say the auction occurred before town meeting and it failed, then HUD would have the opportunity to sell the property to the town. One thing that we really are hearing from the public, and I agree with them, is when you go to town meeting, having a, one all-in cost. So what it would cost to not only buy it, but to invest in the property. Whether that be by creating open space, creating a park, or doing some type of renovation, or doing some mix of the two, and really kind of having that total budget voted on by the people of town. So not to exceed that dollar amount. So in other words, if I knew creating open space was going to cost me, I honestly don't know, but let's say $100,000. Obviously, that's low. I think that's low, but I'm just throwing a random number out there as a hypothetical. And this 1.1 was approved at town meeting, then I know I can't exceed 1 million on a purchase cost. So kind of going to the people of town and saying, this is the all in. If this is how much money I would need to do this. This is how much money I would need to do that, which leaves me X amount at the ceiling for how much I can pay for the building. If HUD won't sell it to us for that amount, then we step away. But one of the things I wanted to ask the committee was, let's say renovating the property wasn't feasible, was too expensive. We couldn't come up with like the right future use. And we ultimately decided to get rid of the building, get rid of the structure. If we wanted to create an open space in a park or something, but also have some type of like historic element to that park that focused on like the history of the building or the property, or and had like, whether that be like a monument or a something of that nature. Could you use the historic preservation funds for that? Or are they only for restoring the actual historic structure? Can you use historic preservation funds to create a informational historic piece, I guess is what I'm asking.
I would say conceivably, yes. But what you're talking about is something that is, if we look at this, the interpretive signs that were done at the life-saving station, I think that between design and fabrication of those two signs, it was probably $1,800. So it's fairly modest.
Right.
Yeah. So I think we're way over. We always spend a lot more money on, usually spend substantially above the 10% minimum on historic preservation. So I think it's a nebulous.
Well, the only reason I asked, I guess, is that if before, let's say it went to auction and that failed prior to town meeting. If I then got someone to give me an assessment or a cost estimate of what it would be to restore the building as it is, and I discovered that would far exceed this 1.1 budget once you include the cost of purchasing the property.
Right.
Could I still include the historic preservation element in the town meeting article in case we wanted to do something, even if it still meant getting rid of the building and creating open space, but some historic element, would it make sense to keep that language in the article?
Like I said, presumably, yes. It seems to me fairly modest. I think the other thing that could be done, Tony, and I think the Historical Society might be very interested in this, is to get actually a good set of record photographs of the interior of that building and the exterior before it's torn down.
Sure.
A question has come up, and it is the big question, but I see a question on the chat. What would be the use of this building in the historic preservation category? And I think that's the question that we've raised before. I mean, if affordable housing is not on the list, what would be the purpose of purchasing this property by the town of Nahant using historic preservation funds? And given the state of the building, if we look at the acquisition cost and the cost for rehabilitation, it's a very substantial investment. So there has to be a meaningful preservation use here.
I mean, it's a hard question to answer right now. My concern with eliminating historic preservation from this application without getting a professional assessment, knowing that there's historic value to the property, is that we're making a decision, prematurely. So, first, my question is, from a professional, what would it cost to restore the building? Then my second question would be, how could you potentially accomplish that and incorporate a future use that would be acceptable by the neighborhood? And that, I mean, ultimately, that is a public conversation that I don't have an answer to, that deserves, input from the community as to what type of uses they would be interested in. And then if you could agree on a couple different types of future uses, then you'd have to go and figure out, all right, how are you going to accomplish that? Is it in the form of some type of curatorship? Is it the town? Does the town have the budget in this amount to accomplish something? It was pretty loud and clear from the folks that were on the call the other day that they and the selectmen agreed is that this would be a one-time question. So we wouldn't want to go back to the town in the future for more funding. Whatever we go to the town this time for, it's going to include the cost. It's a one-time, this is how much the town is willing to invest in the future of this property. So I'd want to have a lot of that information ahead of time, but I'm also tempted to, I'm trying to wait a little bit before the clock really gets tight on needing to finalize the language of this article. Because if the auction occurs and it's successful, this article and this application gets withdrawn. So I don't, want to necessarily spend town resources to get a professional assessment on the viability of a preservation project if it then goes to bid the following week and gets sold.
So here's the dilemma we've got, and it's one that I think you're keenly aware of. We have a limited amount of money to spend or to allocate to recommend to the town meeting, and we have a limited time frame here. I mean, we really need to get our recommendations, begin to sort of drill down on these tonight and tomorrow at our next meeting to be able to get to the FinCom and to the town warrant. So we don't have an awful lot of time. We have very limited time here, Tony. So we're going to need to have you and the Board of Selectmen who made this application drill down.
I mean, I don't think this is the authority to borrow. It's not, it wouldn't cut into this year's, even if we borrowed it, it wouldn't cut into your budget.
Yeah, no, I'm keenly aware of that. And last year, you remember that FinCom put us through a very rigorous drill because we have two approved bonds that already will take up about $140,000 of our money in a given year. We have the East Point bond pending. So I think we have to be aware of all of that.
Sure.
Yeah.
I understand that.
Yep. I know you do. I know you do. So anyway, I'm going to go back to this list. The next thing that we have on the chart is the housing production plan for $75,000.
So are you asking me for a little more info?
I would ask you, is there any play here? Is that $75,000? What's the genesis of that number?
So it depends on, I will have more information for you, but there could be play in this. It depends on what the town ultimately pursues. So there's the full housing production plan process, which could cost up to $75,000. And then there's more of a, there are other housing production procedures that the town can bring a consultant in to help, produce that would potentially become elements of a future housing production plan, but are kind of more like pieces of a housing production plan that are more specific to a town's needs. So for us, it's like, the accessory dwelling unit issue, doing like a review of our zoning, an aging in place study, little elements like that, which are a little bit more focused on the town's needs and, wouldn't be as expensive. So I'm working with the selectmen to kind of figure out which way we want to go. And not only that, but that would, not only just because of the funding side, but because of the language side of whatever this article would end up saying. If it said for a housing production plan, that's a very specific item. If it said for costs associated with helping the town produce housing production or, achieve housing production goals, a little bit more flexibility and, picking off those key elements of a plan that you would use. So I'll have more information for you on this as we work through those questions.
Would you please be prepared to give us a response on that for the next meeting? I'm really gonna focus on getting these numbers as lean as possible, and at the same time, produce meaningful projects.
Sure. I mean, I think that the floor on achieving that stuff is going to be around like 50 or 55. 60 and then 75 is like doing everything, the full production plan. So
Okay. All right, I'm going to move us along here. Thank you. The town hall project, the $100,000 is the curtain and the main window curtains. This is in part, it has, I think that this is probably needs to be more descriptive because this is acoustical mitigation as well as lighting recommendations. So Paul, if you wouldn't mind, can you change that?
Okay, and what would you like it to say?
Acoustical recommendation, acoustical and lighting recommendations for town halls.
Oh, you're in the wrong box.
Oh
Hit
dear.
undo. Hit undo.
Control Z, I guess. Okay, did I do the right thing now?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you got rid of the description for Nahant Village Church. I don't remember what it said in there before.
Oh, I'm not.
There you go.
Yeah.
I do this all the time.
You too?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Wrong box.
Now I'm in the right box.
Okay.
Acoustic.
Acoustic and lighting.
Yes.
Improvements, town hall.
Improvements. Got it. Okay. All right.
Okay, and we also remind ourselves that the town hall has $165,000 that has been appropriated for handicapped access improvements. So Tony, it will make a lot of sense to us to understand where that project is and how we move, how, if at all, these two things get integrated.
I don't think they would be integrated, but I can tell you that Richard and I were scheduled to start working on the ADA access project, and then everything that just happened with the library and town hall envelope. is pushing that back. So we're really like prioritizing that envelope work, trying to get that going. Then as soon as we figure that one out, we're going to move on to the access. So it wouldn't be the same contractor, it wouldn't be the same bid. It wouldn't, they'd be two separate projects.
Okay. And then similarly, Green Lawn Cemetery Walls and Entry Arch should also be Town Hall. That instead of that should be Town Hall and Green Lawns
Okay.
Hall.
Okay.
He was picking up two of the alternates from the Greenwood bid as part of this project.
Mhm.
So those are all flopping, those are all sort of up in the air, aren't they, Tony? Until you get some clarity.
I think number 7 isn't. Number 7's good. We're happy with that one. The acoustic and lighting improvements, that one's good to go.
Mhm. Well, I'm now in number 8. I'm in Town Hall and Green Lawn. So it seems
Town
to me
8,
that
yeah, number 8,
Sorry.
depending on if we're going to be able to take the second lowest bidder from that. If the answer is yes, then I can adjust those numbers and provide those to you pretty quickly. If we have to go back out to bid, then I'm going to call you and ask for your input on what you want me to do.
Okay.
I mean, if we had to go back out to bid, then maybe we reduce this to just 100 and just the cemetery for now. And I don't know. Well, let me see what the IG says first, and then I'll talk to you.
Okay, thank you. The playground equipment category, Paul, this one, number 9, gets bumped up to 137,850.
It doesn't have to get increased, Lynn.
Okay.
That
Can it
that
be
inventory
increased?
that inventory list was that was us just kind of showing that was a preliminary cost estimate that we put together, based on all equipment related to those playgrounds. It wasn't, it doesn't have to change the grant request.
Okay. I think I hear you. Bailey's Hill, we've got at $50,000. We've got the Lodge Park request at $4,500. And we have the flagpole restoration at $25,000. Tony, was that based on somebody's some contractor's cost estimate, or how was that figure derived? Could you remind me?
We looked at the cost of the project from a few years back and adjusted it up for inflation and then down for the amount of work that's required this time around. Not as much of a restoration as it was the last time. So
so this seems to me pretty significantly a paint project, unless I'm missing something.
only certain spots of the pole need some woodwork, but yeah, I would call it 80% paint, 20% woodwork.
Okay. And do you have other budget categories that in your budget that could fund this if we aren't able to?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, if town meeting approves, I'm including it in, I'm putting a decent amount of money in town hall capital this year in the budget. So if it gets approved and we have some extra funds there,
Okay.
we'll be able to do this too.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. And then the other items on this were the library bond that is not taken as yet. That's the $500,000 bond. And then year 2 of the existing 10-year, $400,000 bond, which is a $60,000 draw. And then we also carry $10,000 for administrative costs. So, committee. I don't know about you all, but I've begun to sort of think about how this might be thought about. Because we really just don't, just to remind us, even if we were to take out the Howell Road property at $1.1 million, we still have, a healthy $900,000 worth of requests here. So there's 2 things that we can think about, or 3 things that we can think about. One is reducing the funding on the various grant applications themselves. 2 is not funding certain projects that we don't think are as urgent or in various ways don't meet our criteria. And 3 is to look at bonding. And as I think you heard me say earlier, I have cautions about, getting too much obligated in bonding, because that takes away our flexibility in responding to legitimate and interesting grant requests. So I'm just curious about the committee's response to the points that I just raised. Anyone?
This is Ellen Goldberg, and Lynn, I agree with you, especially with regard to bonding, which I guess has been something that I've said over the past couple of years. But with the amount that we have on the table, it really would reduce our ability to be more flexible in the coming years. Yeah. And it would take away from our ability to grant money.
Yep. So that's the dilemma. I mean, of these, the only one that, I'm putting Howell Road becomes, Nahant Road becomes a very special kind of review and analysis. But let me just ask the committee at large, with these other requests, is there anything here that doesn't seem consistent with our grant making criteria to you? Is there anything that falls off the limb on this list? No?
Well, the 9 Little Nahant Road project is one which is so contingent and so complicated, and has now a shorter agenda of acceptable uses. Mm-hmm. That I find it very difficult to keep that alive, and to do so, I think, puts our ability to fund other things which are much more concrete in real jeopardy. I mean, there's just a limit to the amount of fiscal and cognitive bandwidth that I think we've got here.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Paul. Was that you, Austin, that was about to speak up? Oh, it's Dave. Okay. Hi, Dave.
I have a question. On the town hall visual, the audio and the lighting, is that one of the things that we should be looking at to fund? It seems that that's a maintenance item, not a request from us.
I think you've raised an interesting point, Dave. Does it meet our funding criteria?
Yeah, that was my question, because I know they bought some audio equipment in the last couple of years, and they didn't come to CPC funding, looking, for money to purchase that. They did that in-house with town hall funds.
Yeah, I think,
Dave, sorry.
yeah,
um,
please, Austin.
I had covered this application with Tony. So that this application is to recreate the town hall stage curtain, which did exist there historically. Also for some window treatments, both of those things are to improve the way the sound travels or is absorbed in the space. It's not the audio equipment. There are recommendations for improving the audio equipment, and Tony believes he can possibly do that within funds he has in the general fund. But one of the largest portions of that application is replacing the lighting in the main hall, 8 light fixtures, replacing them with more historically appropriate light fixtures that provide more lighting and are energy efficient. So I do think that application is appropriate for this committee to sort of bring back that historic character and make improvements for audio-visual improvements for people to attend meetings in that space and be able to hear and see.
I have another question for you, Austin. A few years ago, there was a curtain at the town hall that had some asbestos in it. And at town meeting, we had to go appropriate funds to, remove that. Now, is this a different kind of a curtain? Because I haven't.
Yes, it
I
won't
know
be
it's-
asbestos. It will
they
be,
didn't come to funding to buy that curtain.
sorry, Dave, I interrupted the last part of your question. What was that?
Oh, so I know there's a new curtain there. They didn't come in front of us, to buy that curtain. So they must have bought it on, from town hall funds.
I don't believe there is a curtain there at all right now.
No, there isn't.
What is the need for the curtain, Tony?
So, it was the part of the recommendation from the consultant or the engineer that came in and did a audio study on the space. Everything in that space is a hard surface. So by adding these soft surfaces will improve the quality of the audio in the space, so people can hear better. 2 is historically there was always a curtain there. It was an active stage for different types of events, which, as you said, had to be removed many years ago because of it being asbestos. So there's 2 elements there as to why it's.
I have one more question for you, Tony. On the town hall, you replaced all the lights inside with grant money. Is there any grant money that could put new fixtures in the main hall?
So we've replaced all of our. We've also replaced like all of the interior lighting in our public buildings to LED, but the main hall, the company that was selected, they really don't look at high-end historically accurate fixtures. They're just coming to do a conversion, and we already had lighting, lack of lighting issue, and the conversion that they were going to do wasn't going to either be historically accurate or improve, the lighting issues in the space. The only thing they would have accomplished was energy efficiency. So we eliminated that part from the project and brought in another company that is more experienced with that historical lighting element, and understanding the lighting issues in the building. So they provided us the recommendation as to what fixtures we would invest in. And they looked at the pictures of the historical lights that were, the original light fixtures that were in the building. So use that to help them in their recommendation.
Okay.
Good questions. Thank you. So any other questions from the committee about, the viability of these applications? Is there any application that doesn't meet our criteria that we could eliminate? And I'll just remind the committee that the criteria are contained in the grant application. I won't read them to you all, but we have the selection criteria is Appendix A of the grant application itself.
Lynn, I would question the town hall flagpole application since restoration work was done on that a few years ago. It seems more of a maintenance issue, which is not really eligible, is my understanding, for just maintenance, painting, and things of that nature. Am I correct in that?
You are. I think that when we heard that, 20% of this is repairs, that most of it is a paint job, I think it really does feel like we made an investment a few years ago. I think it was Yankee Steeplejack went up there and they did wood Dutchman and epoxy. So now we need to maintain what has actually been repaired and maybe do a little bit more repair. So that conceivably could eliminate, either eliminate in full the flagpole application or grant a small amount towards the wood repairs. Happy to consider either.
I would be in favor of a reduced amount to repair the damage to the wood. Tony had some thoughts or better ideas on how to maybe protect it in the future from the damage that's occurring from the clips on that attach to the flag itself.
Okay. Oh yeah, because they bounce around and sort of knock into it, don't they?
Yes.
So do you want, shall we just, for the purpose of having something put out there, can you give me a dollar figure that you think would be appropriate for the repairs? Come on.
I don't have the numbers in front of me on what that was based on, so I can follow up with Tony on that if he doesn't have that in front of him now.
Let's do that. Tony, we'll look for it for a revised number next time. Anyone else with a question or concern about the viability of any of these applications? Well, with that, I'm going to suggest at our next meeting, which is next Monday, that each of you come in, take your spreadsheet, do some math on it. I know I've done my math on it, and we're going to need to see what we can do in terms of making this work financially. I'd like to suggest that we maintain at least $100,000 general reserve as you do your calculations on this. So think about this. If you look at that last page, think about, instead of spending $636,000 think about spending $536,000, and how would that work?
Mhm.
So
Okay.
what this means is all of these are, applications that were carefully put together. They were submitted. They are valid according to our criteria. So then it's going to be a matter of, do we trim down some applications? Do we eliminate some? Or do we fund everything and look at some amount of bonding? And I have to say, I share with Paul, and I am your historic commission representative, but I do share with Paul reservations about the 9 Little Nahant Road and its future in the historic preservation category. So it's a toughie. Tony, if you will keep us informed as to what is happening with HUD and, that moving target of the auction, that will be very very much appreciated. I'm just going to check the chat box. I've had comments, one in favor of the stage curtain and, getting this town hall stage back into active use. And then a second from the Nahant Historical Society, again, endorsing documentation on 9 Little Nahant Road as, part of what may be recovered from that property. So that could be photographic documentation and possibly, if there is no future viable use for that building and it comes to the point that items might be removed for their artifact value, I think the Historical Society might have some interest in that. Other than that, folks, I guess what I'd like to suggest that, we've got our homework for next week. How do we come up with, $500,000 worth of grant application or grant recommendations here? So please come prepared with your thoughts on that. But other than that, I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
Lynn, before you adjourn, I saw Julie had a comment that the Historical Society had not met with anyone from CPC yet. I could meet with her this week and take that off Jimmy's plate and
Okay.
discuss it next Monday.
Well, Austin, that's a very gracious offer, and please do that. Yes,
Okay.
we do want to have that sort of deeper review. It's possible that Jimmy just isn't able to spend the time on it right now. So thank you. Please do.
Sure.
Okay. Other actually items that people want to bring up before we move to adjourn? Well, then can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay. All right, roll call vote in favor. Well, Paul,
Aye.
Nancy? Nancy
Nancy,
Gattamo?
You're muted.
I second the motion and also move to, I say aye.
Oh, great, thank you. I forgot to ask for a second, Nancy. Thanks for keeping me on the straight and narrow. Austin,
Aye.
Ellen,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
and Lynn, aye. Okay.
Okay.
Paul, if you could really try to work with Kristen for the minutes. that
Yeah,
would be-
I'd love to get them done. Believe me,
Yeah.
I've sent her a couple of emails, and
Okay,
I'm sure she's going to get to it as soon as she possibly can.
yeah, I'm sure she is. Okay. Well, all right, everyone, we've got some work to do next week, so come ready. And thank you, Tony, for joining us tonight. It's really helpful. Okay, bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Good night.
Aye.